4.1 trillion yen. That's the staggering amount of sales Alibaba pulled in during a single day for their Singles Day sale.
Wow.
Just let that sink in. What on earth is this event? And maybe more importantly, why should this be on your radar?
Yeah, exactly the right questions. Because this isn't just about, eye-popping numbers. It's really a live case study, technology reshaping massive consumer behavior.
Okay.
So today, we're diving deep into China's Singles Day sale. Happens every November 11th.
Right.
And our main source here is IT journalist Takefumi Makino's newsletter. It's a really insightful look at the origins, the sheer scale, and, well, the fascinating reasons behind this explosive growth.
Okay, so our mission isn't just, like, marveling at the sales figures, huge as they are. We want to get underneath that. What are the surprising insights Singles Day can give us about China's whole tech and consumer landscape? Let's maybe start with a name, Singles Day. You hear that, you probably think, okay, always been about shopping.
Right.
But that wasn't the original idea at all, was it?
Not remotely, no. The initial concept was quite different from the retail giant it's become. Its roots are actually in something called Guanggunji.
Guanggunji.
Yeah, basically Bachelor's Day, and it popped up in the 1990s. There are a couple of stories about where it started.
Okay.
The most common one points to Nanjing University, maybe 1993. 4 male students in a dorm. They noticed their group kind of looked like the 4 ones in 1111.
Oh, okay.
So they joked about having a get-together on November 11th. Another claim, though, comes from Beijing Institute of Technology, suggesting they started it even earlier, like 92.
Bachelor fun. Okay, so what did this early bachelor fun actually look like? I mean, I can't imagine they were queuing up for discounts on TVs back then.
Definitely not. No, the early traditions were much more about sort of acknowledging singlehood, maybe celebrating it even.
Right.
Picture this. Students wearing T-shirts with 1111 on them, deliberately taking the number 11 bus, packed with others doing the same thing, almost like a mobile singletons club. There were matchmaking parties, and the newsletter mentions some, let's say, spirit acts, streaking, even some unconventional public declarations of affection. It really tapped into this feeling among young people in a changing China, looking for ways to enjoy themselves. This was, remember, the post-Tiananmen Square era. There was a definite shift towards focusing on personal enjoyment.
That's a fascinating cultural shift. Okay, so how did Alibaba, founded by Jack Ma in '99, how did they even get involved in something that started as, well, university antics? They weren't selling consumer stuff initially, were they?
No, not at all. Initially, Alibaba's main thing was Alibaba.com. That was pure business-to-business, B2B.
Connecting businesses.
Exactly, connecting Chinese manufacturers mainly with overseas buyers. And a key to their early success was offering free basic listings. Jack Ma had learned from a previous venture that charging upfront created mistrust.
Right.
So Alibaba.com, free listings. They made money through Chen Tong, which translates to Trust Pass. It was a VIP membership. Okay. Companies paid Alibaba to verify their creditworthiness, basically. And they got this Trust Pass badge that international buyers saw as a mark of legitimacy. It was actually a pretty smart early example of a freemium model.
Free for the basics, pay for the extras, makes sense. But how did they make that leap from B2B to, the consumer world where Singles Day now just dominates?
Well, Alibaba saw huge potential in the consumer market, even with existing players like 8848.com and knowing eBay was coming in by buying EachNet.
Right, the big American giant.
Yeah. They made a strategic move into C2C consumer-to-consumer sales by launching Taobao. Jack Ma saw an opportunity, even though, internet access in China back then was still pretty limited.
Yeah, I guess fewer PCs, dial-up.
Exactly. Dial-up wasn't great for browsing and buying online. Most people were just using the internet for email, really.
Hard to even picture that now, given the numbers we started with. So what was the catalyst, the unexpected event that really pushed e-commerce forward and helped Taobao?
That would be the SARS outbreak in 2003. Unexpectedly, it became this massive accelerator.
SARS?
How? Well, people stayed home. They were trying to avoid infection. And suddenly, the need for information online and the convenience of online shopping. It just became much more apparent.
Makes sense.
Both Alibaba.com and even the struggling EachNet saw a big jump in activity. International travel was restricted, so overseas companies relied more on Alibaba.com to find Chinese suppliers. That actually created a really strong foundation for Alibaba as they moved into C2C.
Talk about an unforeseen event, completely reshaping an industry. So, in the middle of all that, Jack Ma felt this urgency to launch Taobao quickly, even with eBay looming.
He really did. He put together this small, secret team, just 6 engineers, and they literally worked out of his apartment Lakeside Garden Complex.
Secret team in his apartment.
Yeah, and he gave them an incredibly tight deadline, 1 month. Just 1 month to launch Taobao. That really shows you his determination.
1 month. That sounds unbelievably intense. And then the SARS situation actually hit Alibaba itself. How did that affect the launch?
It got pretty dramatic. Just as they were nearing the launch date, an Alibaba employee who had been at a business event in Guangzhou got sick. Confirmed SARS case.
Oh, why?
Jack Ma immediately had the entire company, 400 people, work from home. The local government even quarantined the hospital she'd visited, lots of medical staff, potential contacts.
Right.
And ironically, the 6-person Taobao team found themselves quarantined in their makeshift development center in Lakeside Garden.
So they were stuck there.
Yep. Kept working around the clock, though. And despite all that chaos, Taobao officially launched May 10th, 2003.
Launched into a world where, well, nobody knew them, right?
Right.
And people didn't necessarily trust buying things online yet. eBay was the big name. Deep pockets for marketing.
Yeah.
How did Taobao even start to compete?
Yeah, you're right. Big challenges. Alibaba was mostly unknown to the average consumer. Taobao was brand new. Plus, back then in China, counterfeit goods, low-quality stuff, that was a problem even in physical stores.
Right.
So the idea of buying something you couldn't even see online, that was a huge leap of faith for most people.
And eBay had EachNet.
Exactly. eBay had invested heavily in EachNet, partnered with Yahoo China. They had a massive head start in brand recognition, user numbers. The general feeling was eBay, trustworthy international brand. Taobao, unknown, risky maybe.
So how did they bridge that trust gap? How did they start winning people over? What was the turning point?
A really crucial moment came with the very first transaction on Taobao. There was this student in Japan, Kui Weeping, listed a used camera.
Yeah.
A university student back in Xi'an bought it, but then canceled the purchase when he went to customs to pick it up.
Why?
Customs asked for a purchase invoice, which he didn't have, obviously. It was an online C2C thing. Remember, this is pre-smartphones being everywhere. You couldn't just flash a transaction record.
All right.
The customs official even suggested he might have been scammed. So this highlighted a fundamental weakness. Taobao was just connecting people, but the actual transaction felt really risky for the buyer.
Yeah, that sounds like a recipe for disaster for early e-commerce.
Oh, yeah.
What did they do? How did they fix that core problem?
Well, this incident led to a critical intervention. A Taobao employee actually called the buyer personally, urged him to send the payment, and even offered to personally reimburse him if anything went wrong.
Out of her own pocket.
Yep, an amount equal to her entire month's salary. This act of trust, this guarantee, led directly to the development of Danbao Jiaoyi guaranteed transaction and the point system, Zifubao.
Zifubao. That became Alipay.
Exactly. That evolved into Alipay. And the system was revolutionary because buyers paid into this kind of escrow system held by Taobao.
Okay.
The seller shipped the goods, but the money was only released to the seller after the buyer confirmed they got the item and were happy with it.
Ah, building trust.
A vital layer of trust and security right into the platform.
That's brilliant. Basically acting as a trusted middleman.
Mm.
But eBay was still charging fees at this point, right? How did Taobao use that?
Precisely. Jack Ma rolled out what he called the Ma's free lunch strategy. While eBay was charging sellers listing fees, maybe 1 to 8 yuan plus a 2% commission on sales, Taobao made both listing fees and commissions completely free.
Totally free.
Totally free. It was a direct, powerful contrast. Suddenly, sellers paying fees on eBay had a really compelling reason to move to Taobao.
I bet.
The number of listings just exploded, which in turn attracted more buyers. And by 2005, Taobao's transaction volume actually surpassed eBay, made it the biggest e-commerce platform in Asia.
Wow. There's no such thing as a free lunch, though, as the saying goes. What did eBay's CEO, Meg Whitman, think of this seemingly unsustainable strategy? Surely they saw the threat.
Well, Meg Whitman famously dismissed it, said exactly that. There's no such thing as a free lunch. They basically underestimated Alibaba's long-term vision.
Really?
Yeah, they seemed to believe Taobao would just run out of money in like 18 months and disappear. They didn't grasp the power of building that massive user base first, even if it meant delaying profits.
So Taobao wins the market share battle with the free lunch. But okay, as they got huge, the big question must have been internal. How do we actually start making money from all this?
Exactly. They had market dominance, but how to monetize it. Their first big attempt was this system called Zhaokai Jinbao in 2006.
Zhaokai Jinbao.
Yeah, it allowed sellers to pay for better placement in search results, sort of like paid search ads within Taobao.
Okay, pay to play. How did that go down?
Terribly. Huge backlash from sellers. Large-scale protests at Taobao headquarters, people pulling their money out of their Taobao accounts.
Wow.
Sellers, especially the smaller businesses, felt it was totally unfair. It disadvantaged them.
Yeah.
Faced with that strong opposition, Jack Ma had to just cancel the whole Zhaokai Jinbao system.
Ouch. Back to the drawing board on monetization. Must have been a really challenging time. And this is when Daniel Zhang enters the picture, right? The guy who eventually took over from Jack Ma.
Yes, exactly. To tackle this critical issue, Daniel Zhang, also known as Daniel Young, was brought in as the new chief operating officer of Taobao. He had a finance background, serious ambition to grow Alibaba. There's a story. Jack Ma apparently asked him why he'd join a relatively smaller company like Alibaba after being CFO of a $3 billion company.
That his answer?
Zhang apparently said he'd been the CFO of a $3 billion company, and now he wanted to be the CFO of a $30 billion company. Showed he saw the massive potential.
Ambitious. Okay, so what was his solution? How did he finally figure out how to monetize Taobao without alienating all the sellers again?
Zhang's approach was clever. He created a separate B2C platform, T, short for Taobao Mall.
Tmall. Okay. Different from Taobao.
Yes. Unlike Taobao, which stayed mostly C2C with free listings, Tmall required businesses to pay deposits, listing fees, commissions. But in return, Alibaba gave them data insights, promotional support, helping them succeed.
So targeting bigger brands, established retailers.
Exactly. People willing to pay for enhanced services and visibility.
Makes sense in theory. But I can imagine the existing Taobao sellers weren't exactly thrilled about a higher-cost platform potentially stealing their customers.
Oh, you're right. There was significant resistance. Taobao sellers saw Tmall as basically the same marketplace, just with added costs. Kind of like the failed Zhaokai Jinbao again.
So what happened? Did they try to fight it?
Some did. Some Taobao sellers actually tried to sabotage Tmall. They'd list the same products on Taobao, but at way lower prices, undercutting the Tmall merchants, making it impossible for them to sell.
Wow, marketplace warfare. How did Daniel Zhang handle that? Did he back down this time?
Not a chance. Daniel Zhang took a really firm stance. He investigated these sabotage attempts, identified the Taobao accounts doing it, and decisively froze or deleted them.
Whoa.
Yeah, there were complaints, breach of contract, being heavy-handed. But Zhang didn't waver. His resolute response eventually worked. The Taobao sellers conceded, and that paved the way for Tmall to become successful, profitable. By 2011, Alibaba had this three-pronged structure: Taobao for C2C, Tmall for B2C, and Tout, which was like a search engine pulling listings from both.
All right, so Tmall is up, running, finally bringing in revenue.
Right.
But they still needed like a big splash, right? An event to really draw both sellers and buyers to this new higher-cost platform.
Exactly. They needed a hook. Something to generate buzz, drive traffic specifically to Tmall. And this is where Daniel Zhang had that brilliant idea. Leverage the existing, but still pretty informal, Singles Day.
Ah, connect it back to the Bachelor's Day thing.
Precisely. Turn it into a major shopping event, exclusively for Tmall initially. It was smart because it tapped into those young, digitally savvy e-commerce users who already associated November 11th with, celebrating single status.
So transform it.
Yeah, transform it from a day of playful antics into a day of treating yourself by shopping.
And the timing itself was also pretty strategic, wasn't it, in terms of the retail calendar?
Absolutely strategic. And November 11th falls really nicely between the big Chinese New Year sales, usually late Jan, Feb, and the Western Christmas shopping season in late December.
Fills a gap.
Exactly. It allowed Singles Day to capture a significant chunk of consumer spending without much direct competition from other major retail blowouts.
Okay, so the first official Singles Day sale as a big Tmall shopping event, how did that actually go? I'm guessing it wasn't the multi-trillion yen spectacle right away.
No, not quite the behemoth we know now. The first one, 2009, was relatively small. Only 27 merchants participated on Tmall.
27?
Yep. And total sales hit 50 million yuan, which is, about 7.6 million US dollars. A decent day, sure, but nowhere near the explosion that came later.
But the seed was planted. So what was the key factor? What turned it into the massive shopping frenzy we know today?
The real game changer came the next year, 2010. They rolled out a really bold strategy, 50% off everything.
50% off everything?
Yep, a huge discount. And it was jointly funded by Alibaba and the participating merchants. It was a massive draw.
I bet.
Attracted 711 merchants that year and generated total sales of 936 million yuan, almost hit the 1 billion yuan mark. That was a huge jump, really grabbed consumers' attention.
50% off everything. Yeah, that'll definitely get people clicking.
Yeah.
So from that point, the core elements of the sale started to really take shape, right?
Exactly. That second Singles Day really established the key features. Things like the large-scale distribution of pre-sale coupons, sometimes months in advance, building that anticipation.
Right, the hype buildup.
Yeah. And then that concentrated shopping frenzy that kicks off right at midnight on November 11th creates this huge sense of urgency, like you're part of this massive bargain hunt.
The FOMO factor.
Totally. The limited time deals, the sheer number of people trying to get onto the site at once, it added to the excitement, almost like being in a packed physical store during a huge sale.
And the growth from then on was just exponential, wasn't it? I remember hearing these mind-blowing sales figures year after year.
Truly remarkable. The sales figures just climbed dramatically every single year, culminating in that staggering 268.4 billion yuan, the 4.1 trillion yen figure in 2019.
Incredible.
By then, the event had also been officially renamed the Double 11 Shopping Carnival, reflecting that it wasn't just for singles anymore, it was a nationwide phenomenon. And, the incredible success of Singles Day was a major factor in Daniel Zhang eventually succeeding Jack Ma as Alibaba's CEO.
Makes sense. Now, beyond just the crazy sales numbers, the newsletter highlights something else. Singles Day became this major driver for Alibaba's technological advancements. How did that work exactly?
Well, think about the sheer volume of transactions. It's almost impossible to really grasp. 2019 alone, 2.8 billion purchase transactions in one day.
Billion, with a B.
Billion. This massive surge in demand acted as this incredibly rigorous testing ground, a crucial catalyst for developing and refining Alibaba's underlying tech infrastructure.
Right, the servers must be melting.
Imagine the pressure on their systems to handle that. This incredible scale forced Alibaba to develop highly scalable, highly resilient cloud infrastructure, which, by the way, eventually spun out into their successful AliCloud business.
So the shopping holiday directly fueled a major tech business.
Absolutely. AliCloud is now a key player globally in cloud computing. That's a key insight the holiday drove the tech.
Sounds like an IT engineer's ultimate stress test and proving ground, all rolled into one.
That's exactly it. Alibaba's engineers reportedly worked tirelessly in the weeks leading up to November 11th, like not going home, just ensuring system stability.
Wow.
They run intense stress tests, simulate massive traffic surges, find bottlenecks, fine-tune everything. This constant pressure, the need to handle that unprecedented scale, it directly spurred improvements in their cloud computing AliCloud, their payment security Alipay, and their logistics capabilities.
So advancements driven by the sale became core parts of their business.
Exactly, core parts of their broader ventures, yeah.
It's fascinating. Our shopping holiday basically becomes a tech development boot camp. And Jack Ma himself has talked about the profitability, or maybe lack thereof, from Singles Day itself, right?
Yes, he famously stated that Alibaba doesn't actually make a direct profit from the discounted sales on Singles Day. He emphasized the main goal is enjoyment for consumers, opportunities for merchants.
And for Alibaba.
For Alibaba, it's about upgrading their technology, refining their organization, enhancing their team skills. He even described November 11th as just incredibly exhausting for everyone involved. Logistics, engineers, Alipay staff, just the sheer volume.
That's an interesting take. So if they're not making direct profit from the discounts, how does Alibaba benefit financially from this massive event? Where's the money?
Well, while the direct profit on the items might be minimal, Alibaba generates significant revenue through advertising.
The ads.
Exactly. Leading up to and during Singles Day, merchants advertise heavily on Alibaba's platforms, Taobao, Tmall, even their video site Youku. This massive surge in ad spending provides a very substantial revenue stream.
Okay.
If you look at Alibaba's quarterly financial reports, you consistently see a big jump in operating income in Q4. That's October, December, the period that includes Singles Day.
Got it. So they capitalize on the surrounding activity.
Precisely. Not directly profiting from the discounts maybe, but definitely capitalizing on the whole ecosystem around the event.
Smart. So astronomical sales, tech gets battle-tested, Alibaba rakes in ad revenue. But there's also this intriguing conspiracy theory around the accuracy of the sales data, particularly for 2019.
Yes, that caused quite a stir. After the 2019 Singles Day, when Alibaba reported that 268.9 billion yuan figure, this online discussion popped up questioning if that number was, well, real.
Why? What sparked it?
It was largely sparked by this one netizen who had, remarkably, predicted that number almost exactly 6 months beforehand.
Predicted it. How?
This person analyzed the sales data from all the previous Singles Days, 2009 to 2018, plotted them on a graph, and found that the line connecting those points formed an almost perfect curve, like a 99.94% average fit rate.
Wow, that is precise.
Yeah, that level of near-perfect predictability raised eyebrows. Some suggested the numbers might not be entirely organic. As evidence, they pointed to their own prediction for 2019 based on this polynomial curve fitting.
And what was their prediction?
Depending on the exact mathematical approach, they predicted either 267.637 billion yuan or 268.9 billion yuan, both incredibly close to the actual reported figure of 268.4 billion. Understandably, that led to a lot of debate online.
That's uncanny.
Yeah.
So what was Alibaba's response to all these questions? Did they address it?
They strongly denied any manipulation, stated these are publicly reported numbers, scrutinized globally, no reason to fabricate them.
Okay.
And many financial news outlets also chimed in, suggesting that Alibaba's incredibly sophisticated data-driven approach is the reason. They set targets, manage promotions across this vast range of products year after year. It leads to these remarkably consistent, predictable outcomes.
Basically, they're just that good at forecasting.
Essentially, yes, they have an extremely good understanding of their market, their consumers, powered by data.
Which really brings us back to Daniel Zhang's emphasis on data, doesn't it?
Absolutely. Daniel Zhang has said it multiple times. Alibaba is no longer an IT company. It is a data technology company. Their ability to analyze these vast amounts of data to forecast demand, tailor promotions, optimize everything that's key to the success, and perhaps the apparent predictability of events like Singles Day.
Right.
That same polynomial model even predicted 329.4 billion yuan for the 2020 sale. Of course, the pandemic might have thrown a wrench in the works.
True.
But looking at those results could offer even more insights into the dynamics of this whole thing.
So bringing it all together then, it's really clear that Singles Day is just so much more than a day of deep discounts.
Oh, absolutely.
It's this powerful engine for tech advancement, a really fascinating window into China's unique consumer culture, and just a compelling case study in e-commerce strategy overall.
Couldn't agree more. Understanding Singles Day gives you valuable insights. The scale, the speed of innovation in China's tech market, the whole evolving relationship between online and offline commerce globally, and just the sheer power of concentrated consumer behavior.
And that level of data analysis, the prediction aspect, it really underscores how Singles Day isn't just shopping anywhere. It's like this massive real-world experiment.
In consumer behavior and the power of data.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it, about the implications of such a huge data-driven consumption event on a global scale. What does it tell us about the future? Retail, technology, maybe even how we celebrate things culturally in this super interconnected world, and what Singles Day equivalents might pop up or maybe already exist in other cultures, and what unique forces are driving them. Definitely a lot to think about there.